Hi, I'm Mike Weinstein. I'm an award-winning filmmaker. I've just been interviewed by Keith Andrew. He's doing an amazing job keeping people updated on all events and people's passions. Keep up the good work, Keith.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching KeithAndrewNetwork. It is episode 760. That's right, 760. As we're on the road to the holidays, all this month will be a holiday theme on the Keith Andrew Network. So you can get to dress up, wear a funny hat, or dress however you like. But the whole month is a Christmas theme. That being said, it's a real honor and privilege to have you as a guest. Real honored and privileged for this opportunity. I love meeting new people, expanding my horizons, and networking with everyone in different areas to, as I said before, to network. With that being said, our today's guest is Michael Weinstein. And I just want to say it's a real honor and privilege to have you as a guest, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No, the honor's all mine. For people who want to know who Michael Weinstein is, you are a award-winning filmmaker. And that's really amazing. The one thing I saw that you actually won 30 different awards, and I'd like to hear the story about that. And you're also a TV director.
Right. Well, currently I direct at Fox as a freelance director. And what I like about that, I have no interest in journalism whatsoever. But what I like about it, I still get to deal with cameras, lighting, blocking, doing the set design and stuff like that. So it's really a great opportunity to do that. I do shows like Hannity. Sometimes I'll film and do Outnumbered. I do Justice and the Greg Gutfeld Show, which is a comedy show. And that's my bread and butter. But my true passion is making films. So the last film that I made was If the Trees Could Talk. And that was a supernatural Holocaust film. And that won 30 awards and was in the short corner for the Cannes Film Festival. And before that, I did a short film called White Knuckle, which won 7 awards in film festivals. But I knew I wanted to be a filmmaker since I was 6 years old. You know, it was just a passion, being able to tell stories. And as far as I'm concerned, there's really nothing better than creating tangible worlds through just an idea, you know, and just creating those atmospheres. So that's really the best feeling in the world.
No, I agree with you. It's, hey, if you ever think I would be a good fit for Fox News about being interviewed or turning the show into something, hey, hit me up, right?
Sure, exactly.
Now, the other thing I want to ask you is, you mentioned you are a TV director. What were some of your favorite films that you ever directed?
Well, I mean, the thing with Fox is the Fox was more of Fox News, actually, as opposed to film. But as far as the films that I've directed, I would have to say that If the Trees Could Talk was probably my best experience because it was a much more professional set. You know, I had a lot more crew and a lot more talented people to help me out create my vision. And I would say that 95% of my vision was actually realized when making this movie. Usually there's always obstacles when you make your other movies. Sometimes it's budget constraints, sometimes it's weather, sometimes it's technical issues. And there's always something that doesn't make your vision come exactly to life. But If the Trees Could Talk, that was actually a film that I could say that I could watch without cringing. That's one of my movies. So, yeah.
No, absolutely. It's always good to have a strong passion for what you're doing. Never do anything half-ass. I have a bad habit of doing that. I can write a book about doing things half-ass. But if you have a passion to do what you love every single day, then you know what?
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't even have to work. You know, you found something that you're good at.
Absolutely. Like even when I was in high school, they had a video contest, and the video contest was tell a New York City story, a short film. So I was like, oh my God, this is an opportunity to actually do something legit. So I entered the contest. I became one of the semifinalists. Speaking of, you know, like you said, you have to have passion. I remember that if you didn't go to all the workshops, you would be disqualified. And I had like a fever of 102. This was in 2002. And I was like, Mom, Dad, I have to go, because if I don't do it, I'm going to be disqualified. I just feel like I have to do this to prove that this is what I want to do for my life. So as a result, I made a short film, and it actually won grand prize at Evolve of New York City, and aired on Showtime. It was featured in the Museum of Television Radio. And so having that mini success kind of made me say to myself, okay, maybe I could actually do this for a living. Maybe I could actually be good at it. Maybe this is a good sign. So, and then I went to film school. I went to Adelphi University. I made several short films. Most of the stuff I'm not even proud of, honestly. I burned most of those tapes because, students are so lucky today, because not only do they have the technology, their cameras to make their films look like real movies. Whereas when I was going to school, it was still SD. We were lucky to have 24 frames per second. So your movies look more like home movies than they did professional. So students are so lucky that they have access to equipment, even the iPhone, where you can make your movie look like a real movie. I didn't have that luxury. So I never was really proud of anything I did in college.
No, I can relate. When I was in high school, I was a part of the audio visual department, and I was always running around with a camera. And yes, it's nice you have a video camera, but when you watch it back, it feels like a home movie. And
Exactly.
my sister and my brother used to have a camera too, and you watch back and like the graphics weren't that good. And if this is about in the 90s, thank God it got
Right.
so much better.
No,
And
I mean, right, absolutely. And it's almost cringeworthy. But now even my school has drones now that they're using. There's schools using the Red and mini Alexas, and I'm like, oh my God, I would love to be a student now where you have access to that. But I would say probably the coolest thing I did in school was actually shooting on film, shooting on 60 millimeter, and I physically spliced the film in a Steambeck, and that was the best experience. So I had literally film shots all over the place, all over the room, taped to the wall, whereas now we have like an edit bin digitally. But I was physically cutting and taping shots together, and it really made you appreciate how they edited films back in the day, because it's much more time consuming. You have to it makes your editing much more disciplined, because you can't really mess up. Once you cut that film, it's really hard to put it back together. So shooting on film was actually a really great experience. I will hope I could do that again soon.
No, absolutely. Now we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I'm going to ask you a little more about your acting career. I'm going to ask you about your favorite films you ever produced, social media, and have you ever worked with people with disabilities when we come back.
Hi, it's Mimi Chen.
Hi, my name is Ellen George.
I'm Shauna Toth.
Hey guys, I'm Anastasia Edwards.
Hi, this is Jackie Nunez.
Hi, I'm Millie Rose.
Hey guys, I'm Alexandria Denise, and you're watching Keith Andrews Show. He's doing a terrific job. Make sure you like and subscribe, and stay tuned for more awesomeness.
To the Keith Andrews Network, we're back from the commercial break. Now, the first thing I want to talk to you about is the theme of my show. A lot of people say I should have a theme, and so I'm not like diarrhea, I'm all over the place. The theme of the show is people with disabilities making a difference. With everything that you accomplish in your life, have you ever, besides me obviously, have you ever worked with people with disabilities, and are you willing to work with people with disabilities?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because there should be no setback at all that could prevent someone from following their passion or being who they are. I believe strongly having as many vast and a variety of people on a set as possible, because it just adds to the culture of cinema. I think that it's important to work with people with disabilities, because where they might be limited in some aspect, they could bring something else to the table that no one else ever thought of, So having the biggest variety of cast and crew is the most important thing I think you could have on a film set to make it work.
No, I agree. Now, for people with learning disabilities who want to follow in your footsteps, what would some of your words of advice be to them?
Probably the way that I learned mostly through learning my trade was I read a lot of books. I read a lot of books because at least when you read books about filmmaking or filmmakers' experiences, whether it be books on technical elements or actually the theory of film, you get to read it at your own pace. You know, no one's shoving it down your throat. And if it's something you enjoy, I think it's something that people would pick up really quickly. Also, I honestly think that, especially for film or TV, if you work on a set, whether starting off as a PA or an assistant or something, actually, when I worked on a film set, I learned more in one day on a film set than I did in a whole semester of school. Because when you work as a PA, you're learning about the lighting, learning about the camera, set design, costume. You're being brought into all different departments to learn the trade. And sometimes that's more valuable than a whole semester a year at school. I'm telling you, that professional experience is getting out there. And then also what's good about that, you kind of see what you like. So maybe you might go on the set, and before you go on the set, you say to yourself, oh, I want to be a camera person, or I want to be a cinematographer. And it turns out that you really maybe like doing the lighting instead, maybe being a gaffer and setting up the lights, or maybe you find yourself, you like set design better or special effects. So reading and doing it at your own pace, especially when you have passion, will help guide you, but also working on a set for a couple of days or just one day, whether it's an independent film or professional film or even a TV show or a low budget, webisode or whatever, it gives you experience to show maybe what you might find yourself liking best out of all those different departments.
No, absolutely. Now, the other question I want to ask you is, based on everything you've seen in my talk show, and these are two questions. First one is, how would you film it better, number one? And if you were my director, how would you direct the show better?
Your show?
Yes.
I think what I would do is I would shrink the text behind you where it says, Keith, your last name, because you're blocking it. I would shrink it and maybe put it over your shoulder, like maybe over your right shoulder, like it was an OTS or something. But I think otherwise I think you're doing a really good job. You're centered. You have the personality for it. No, I think that's the only thing visually, but I think everything else you have in the ballpark. So.
No, absolutely. And I always change the background anyway, so it's.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah,
oh, go ahead.
Just the text, just the your full name. I would shrink it just as over the shoulder so you could see who that host is that's hosting this show.
No, absolutely, and that's all in the beginning of the show too. So I just use it for design, to be honest.
But no, you're cooking with gas, so you're good.
Do you think, your honest opinion, I want you to be brutally honest. I want to see how brutal you can get. Based on what you know and what you've seen, do you think my show is good enough to go to the next step?
What would you consider the next step?
Like, for an example, Netflix, Fox News, anything like that.
How many years have you been doing this?
7.5.
7.5. Great. I mean, anything's possible. The only thing with Netflix is that it's really more narrative stuff, There's really hardly any talk shows or anything like that. So with Netflix, unfortunately, they have camera requirements. So you can't even use a cell phone. You can't even, like one time I wanted to make a movie on a cell phone. That wouldn't be approved by Netflix. They only use 4K censored type cameras they have to use for that. But honestly, I think, especially for my film, because I have my films on Amazon and stuff like that, but it's really about getting out there. So I eventually, instead of selling it on Amazon, just put it for free on YouTube, because I just feel like you get more hits that way. So next level, I think unfortunately, it's affected by budget. Like they want more special cameras, they want more special graphics, and I think if you do that, I mean, you have the personality for it. So I mean, you have a great personality. You're joyful. You're in the season spirit. So so I think you have the personality. I guess probably just graphically and technologically wise, so that would have to be stepped up. But I think that people who would be watching is more for you, not what you're shooting on and what your graphics are. So I think if you keep on doing what you're doing, I don't think anything could stop you.
No, absolutely. I do like to talk to you about that off the air. But the one thing I found very interesting, and our viewers will find this very interesting, is you won 30. That's absolutely amazing. You won 30 indivisible awards. So I would like to hear if you want to give us the quick synopsis or quick highlight of your very first and then your very last.
Well, what's great about, to be honest, winning the awards is awesome. It's a really great feeling, and it shows that all the sweat and blood and hard work you've been doing for when you work on a project, you're working on it for even a short film. I'm working on it for a year. So all that hard work, the sweat, the blood, the agony melts away when you get that first audience's reaction. Let me tell you, the awards are great, but there's nothing better than getting the reaction from audiences around the world that you wanted to get from the film, that you wanted people to actually feel. And that to me is better than any award, because it shows that all your hard work is paid off and you were able to tell the story like you wanted to. That's the best feeling. It was very nice. We were invited to the Cannes Short Corner. That's really great because it takes your film skills to a new level, which I feel is great. And, I made a lot of mistakes in previous films, and every film gets better and better only because you learn from those mistakes. And I promise I would never make those mistakes again. But traveling to different cities with the film festivals across the world was probably the best experience. And that's probably my favorite part, because you get to enjoy the fruits of, your hard work, which is nice.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I keep saying absolutely. That should be like a hashtag. I should get $1 for every time I say absolutely.
Absolutely. We would link right to you.
The other question I want to ask is, what is coming up on the horizon and where are you heading to next?
Well, I just recently finished writing my first feature film, and I sent it to a script doctor and I gave it to some producers, and they really liked the script. I worked on it for a year. It's about mental illness and using creatures as a metaphor for different mental illnesses, because I personally suffer from obsessive compulsive disorder. And, there's been times where I've had really difficult issues, and sometimes it paralyzes you and prevents you from functioning in things you love. So I wanted, instead of making a documentary, or because there's thousands of documentaries on mental illness and OCD, how could I tell this story but in a creative, different way? But even though it is a psychological thriller / horror film, it's using creatures as a metaphor for different illnesses. And I just figured it would be a better way to use it as I think it would be more fun. I mean, of course, the film has to be entertaining also. You don't want it just to be an educational thing. But that's how we're kind of taking a thriller horror genre, but incorporating it to something that's serious. So I've written the script, and I'm still tweaking every day, making it better every day. But unfortunately, because of COVID, we had to postpone almost the whole year. So in the meantime, my fiance and I are writing a children's book, because, well, at least when we're writing a children's book, we're not in danger of getting COVID or infecting others or anything. And it's the only way to stay creative and be safe,
It's funny. I actually made a hashtag recently because I was so sick of these stupid, ignorant people walking around without a mask, thinking that it's over, and not just really don't. Like
no, it happens.
PG-13. Yeah. Who doesn't give a shit? That's the biggest
No.
thing is people don't care.
Right. And the thing is, whether the masks help or not, let's follow protocol. Let's wear the masks, because I think at this point we'll do anything to get back to normal, you know?
No, absolutely. Knock on wood. Hopefully the vaccines work, and for
Right.
a timetable.
And the thing is, a lot of films have been shooting even with COVID, but following safety precautions. I know that Jurassic Kingdom 3, I think, and the Batman film they were shooting, and someone got COVID and they had to stop down. So I know people are trying to rush out content, but I think it's less expensive and more safe just to wait, because now they have to wait for people to get better and they're hanging around. And I just feel that it's better. I'd rather wait and tell my story the way I think it should be told than to compromise my vision and, just change it based off of COVID. So I'm a little frustrated that it's taking this long in my life to make a feature film, but, I'd rather wait, be safe, and tell the story that I want to.
No, I agree. Based on the timetable me and my dad were talking about, say it's working on it now, so first responders get it, obviously. For everyone else, should be like March. Then we have to do it again in April and in May. So you're looking at least the summer. Hopefully by the summer, most of the, smart people, hopefully the smart people are vaccinated. But then you have to worry about the stupid ones who are like, oh, I don't believe in it, or this, or you know what? As long as I'm vaccinated, I can go back to work. I can live my life. Yes, if I have to wear a mask, so be it. But the biggest thing is take care of yourself. Because if you don't take care of yourself, no one's going to be there to clean up your messes.
Absolutely. I mean, I worry about my parents all the time. I worry about older people. I think, I actually can't wait till older family members get the vaccine, because at least it can't be worse than getting the horrible virus and dying from it, So I feel that the earlier the vaccines released, the safer for my parents, your parents, everybody's parents, family members, friends. And I know my doctor said at least if 60 to 80% of the people take the vaccine, that we could kind of start to return to normal, So hopefully,
I agree.
Hopefully that's the case. I really hope so. But it's a nightmare. I just can't believe this is even happening. So
it's funny, but it's not funny. They all were saying it, and well, there's two ways I look at it, and I just popped in my head. It's funny, it's not funny, because people were always saying it's gotta come a day, and here it is, but yet people are not taking it seriously, number one. And number two, it's kind of like, this is the second time in history something like this has happened. The first time, okay, 100 years ago, what's the chances of it happening? This is the second time. Now, if no one learns a damn thing from the second time, then people are really stupid.
Yeah, and
scary fact.
And the fact of the matter is, we know much more about viruses and illnesses now than we did back then. So we should take advantage of that. I think, and I know that the vaccine coming out is almost in record time, and as opposed to any other vaccines coming out. And we just have to. It's annoying to wear the mask, but I'm willing to do it to save somebody's life. I'm happy if someone wears the mask to save my life, your life. And, it's just the way it has to be. But I'd rather be uncomfortable for a little while than have to be uncomfortable for years to come,
I agree with you. Now, wrapping up the talk show, last question I want to ask is, how can our listeners get in touch with you? And what's the next step for them to get started with you?
Well, you could reach me at well, you don't have to say the www. Everyone knows www. runawaytrainfilms.com. That's my website. And you could also find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I have a lot of students and other people, aspiring filmmakers, who reach out, and I try to help them as much as possible. I give them advice of things to do and not to do. ways to go about it. It's very tough now to give advice because of COVID and the fact that I say, no, go out there, work on a film set. And you can't right now. We're at a standstill. But if you're a creative person and you can't be on a film set, write, because the only way to become a good storytelling director is to be able to know how to write a concise story that tells the story that you want to tell with interesting characters, and keep your passion. You know, your passion will never go out the window. It's discouraging right now because of all the issues that are happening with COVID, but never be discouraged. And my advice is never compromise your vision. No matter if someone says, well, maybe you should do it different, or there's weather issues, or maybe there's technical issues, never compromise the vision that you want. Because I'll give you a perfect example with Stolen Minds, which is the film that I just wrote that I want to shoot in the summer. I have a protest scene and I have a graduation scene, and obviously you need extras. Right now you can't do extras. So someone was like, well, maybe just change the script and cheat it. And I said, I don't want to compromise the story for the virus. I'd rather wait, tell the story that I want to tell, because it's important the way that I wrote it for reasons of having all these scenes with extras and so forth. Never compromise your vision, no matter what, because you wind up regretting it and you don't want to have any regrets. But because we're in the COVID situation, you want to get your creative outlet out, you should write, because that gets your creative juices flowing. It exercises your brain. It lets you know how to tell a concise story. And now you'll have scripts or stories. So when we can do shooting past COVID, now you'll have content that's ready to go for you to go out there and shoot. So that's my advice, and that's what I think should happen.
No, I agree. Now, wrapping up our talk show, it was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest. I wish you a happy holidays. I just want to say thank you for your time.